All right.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. It's afternoon, right? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Happy Friday. Hope you're all doing well. I'm Adam Haj with LAHC, Leaders Advancing and Helping Communities. I am a substance abuse prevention specialist, and I have a very special guest with me today, Rabih Darwiche. Sir, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Adam. My name is Rabih Darwiche, and I work for Hype Athletics in Wayne. Hype stands for Helping Youth Progress and Excel. I'm also the Director of Operations for the Safe Substance Abuse Coalition. I'm a peer recovery coach as well, interventionist. Um, and I myself have been 6 years sober. Sorry for that. And and I had many years of active addiction as well, where I'll be sharing my story with you guys.
Thank you so much for being on with us today, man. I know that, especially in the Dearborn community now, more than ever, we need to have these conversations and open up the floor for dialogue around substance use, especially now it's problematic. I've lost, I think, two or three very close friends to overdose, and so it's become a very big problem. And so I'm glad we're able to have this conversation. So I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'm going to go ahead and get started with. I have a list of questions that we're going to go through. So our first one, we would like to know, what was life like for you before using?
So life for me before using. So I immigrated to the United States in 1989. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. I stayed there till the age of 6. So I grew up in the Civil War, and when I came to the United States, went straight into kindergarten. Went from reading books to like reading 3 languages, English, French, and Arabic, to coloring. That's it, and then I lost a sense of language, and then I was very grateful when I finally learned English. Like it was such a reward for me, and I went to McDonald's school. I had a very normal childhood, extremely fun summers, long ones, outdoors, going to Hemlock Park, swimming at the pool, Ford Woods Park, went to Laurie Middle School. I actually went to Becker. We were the first graduating class of that school. Played in every sport, basketball, football, you name it. And so life before addiction was relatively normal. Now, I do recall seeing marijuana for the first time at the age of 12. It was behind the gas station on Schaefer Road at the Marathon. And at that time, we had about 2 guys that were smoking marijuana at the time. And we knew it was bad. We knew it was bad, and we never used it. Other than that, there wasn't too much exposure when we were young, and we were relatively safe, riding bikes. So, it was relatively very fun, your interactions with fights, just, kids growing up interacting, playing video games here and there. So it was very interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the backstory is very similar to mine. I was in Lebanon up until the age of 6 or 7, and then the Civil War kind of pushed us over here.
Right.
And it's interesting because you go from kind of more advanced schooling to 4+4 and 8+8. It's
Yeah.
and I had to learn Spanish after learning French in Lebanon. So it was definitely a transition.
But
Um,
we're very fortunate. I think that living here, we're very fortunate as opposed to what life is like over there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with the political climate now. Definitely very fortunate, alhamdulillah. Our next question. Do you remember, or do you remember what it felt like before or when you started using, the first time?
So you mean, okay, so the first time I used marijuana, now looking back, when we talk of, let's say, peer pressure, or and there was one thing that now when I recall growing up, sitting on my porch, and I realized that my peer pressure was watching people, the way they dressed, whether it was a CK shirt, Gibrod jeans, getting in their Corvettes, getting in their Supras, listening to Tupac. And it seemed really cool to me to do that. And I remember making the decision, mind you, that if you're the way I was growing up, if you're the type of person that smoked or did anything wrong, I really wouldn't hang out with you. I was really principled in that manner. I would slowly just, distance myself. And then I remember making the decision 2 weeks prior to the time I smoked marijuana, and it was premeditated. Nobody, many people have asked me before then, but then I made the decision 2 years at that time. And I remember I was scared. I was really scared. I didn't know what to expect. And I had this sense of euphoria when I smoked marijuana for the first time. It made me extremely comfortable in my skin. And I was just blown away the whole entire day. And the thing is the reason why I'll never forget the first time I smoked marijuana is because nothing ever lived up to that same high when it came to marijuana. And I recall after that trying to smoke weed, and it was just not, I would get high, I would get that euphoric feeling, but it wasn't remotely close to that first time. So basically I was kind of chasing it after that.
Yeah, they call it, I believe Jordan Peterson, or some psychologists would call it chasing the dragon.
Right.
You're essentially trying to chase that same feeling, but it's never like that. That's really the deception behind it, is you think you're going to get that same kind of warm feeling, and then over time it becomes more and more detrimental, and it starts to feel like it was just a mirage. It was, an illusion.
Right.
Did any significant life events or anything happen that prompted you to start using, or were you just curious one day? You were like, let me try it.
I was curious because growing up in East Dearborn, from time to time you would see people say that they tried it. So, eventually a certain amount of people have tried it themselves. So like I said, I watched others and the way they conducted themselves. And when I started seeing, my peers around me slowly, one by one, start to do it, I said, okay, I want to know what the fuss is about, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, the influence comes from the movies that I watched, like Boys in the Hood and all that stuff, and Menace to Society. Like, these were things that were my favorites. Okay. And and then the music I listened to, they talked about smoking marijuana and with no consequence, right? They never discussed anything. They just said how great it was and nothing else. It was the greatest thing ever. They don't talk about the come down, how you feel after, the depression, the anxiety that comes from it. No consequences. It's a great thing and nothing else. So, that's pretty much how it is, man.
Yeah, that's spot on too, because you never listen to Wiz Khalifa talk about like the digestive or reproductive harms from THC. It's just like, oh, I'm high all the time. It's like, well, yeah, but are you able to sleep? Are you having anxious episodes? Because it causes these things for a surprising majority. And with the legality of weed, with it becoming more acceptable, we're starting to see everything kind of, all the long-term effects that it causes. And it's like, okay, maybe it's not as harmless as Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa had us believe.
That's right.
Yeah, I grew up with pretty much the same movies, man, and that, I think that coupled in with everyone around you getting into the habit of doing it, that can definitely influence somebody even without them noticing. And I remember, I used to frown upon it too, and that's for another discussion. Let's see.
But I wanted to add something, as I look back at my story and then helping others, right, in the community, I start to realize one of the greatest forms of prevention, how they used to say in the 80s, just say no, right? And it's really like, how do you get to say no? Like, how do you do that, right? It's very easy to say the word no, but a lot of us struggle with that, like literally how to say no to anything, right? Yeah. Where a lot of us are yes people. And I realized it's the environment itself, and like how to not even put yourself in that environment, so you don't even have to say that no. It's already a no before you even somebody has the opportunity to even offer it to you. That's by setting boundaries, and that's something that we really don't teach our youth. That's not something that the way the love language of our parents was, don't hang out with them, right? But that's as far as it went. Was action really taken? Did families speak to each other? Did we go the extra mile? Did the parents take them somewhere else, right? And saying, okay, don't hang out with this person. Okay, well, what do I do now? So the preparation. Now looking back, that's a good way of preventing, learning how to say no.
Because you'd hear just say no to drugs and don't let people pressure you. It's like, but these are people that I want to hang out with, people who I'm friends with, and they're experimenting with these things. They seem fine, and so I was like, for me, it was like, okay, you tell me not to do it, but why? Why shouldn't I do it? And no one ever answered that question for me, and that's where the curiosity peaked. And now, thankfully, we have more experience. We have more people coming forward and saying, yeah, you shouldn't. This is why. This is a list of consequences. Here are the 2 or 3 pros that you'll experience. You're gonna get high, you're gonna get hungry, and you're gonna be laughing at everything. But here's a whole page and a half of consequences that result from it. Ultimately, it ends up not being worth it. And like you said, it really is like the social climate around us, like people around us can influence us more than we think, especially if we have a hard time saying no, which, I personally,
a lot of people do.
It's something I'm working on. Like even at 29 years old, I'm continually working on asserting myself and being able to say no and being able to take accountability for my own actions. And so I think that's definitely like one big part of prevention is educating not just, the pros and the cons, but also how do you advocate for yourself to say, you know what, as fun as that looks, it's going to be way more fun for me to be able to get this kind of experience or this buzz naturally, like exercising or hiking or rock climbing or swimming, right, or even creating, drawing, painting, making music. All of these things can give you a natural high that's more sustainable. I don't think you come down from that.
Right.
Or any other drug, the come down is like, it's horrible. So that's what prompts somebody to keep using and using. During your addiction, did any of your personal relationships kind of like get affected by your using?
So early on, when I said, I started getting comfortable in my own skin. And when I smoked marijuana, I moved on. I graduated to alcohol, and it started to encourage me to do more things. I guess you can say be more confident with the ladies, something that I lacked in that department. So that's when I realized, like, okay, I'm more comfortable in my skin. I can communicate with the ladies better. That was one of my insecurities. And again, I was influenced by those peers that used to do that to go out, right? Because that's what I thought a part of like growing up and like the goals were, right? And so in my using, I started hanging out more with people from the streets. I developed stronger relationships with them. So I thought, but then I started where my relationships started to lag slowly, was with my family. And And how that started was in my youth. So in high school, I would say where like the career of lying started was saying to my family, I'm going to study, and then I would go get high. So I would have the opportunity after school to leave, say I'm going to the library, and I would get high. So that's where like the lying started with my parents and other family members. And then when I hurt my knee, now mind you, like at that time I would take time off. It was like I was an occasional user, right? It wasn't I was a full blown, addicted. It was a everyday thing. Then when I was 19, I hurt my knee. Was prescribed opiates, and then that's when it went to another level. I experienced euphoria on a scale that I couldn't describe. It was like something that I loved, and it made me feel out of this world. I can recall the feeling of being in a vehicle, right? I was in a vehicle. It was summertime, there was AC in the vehicle, and I remember I took this prescription, Vicodin at the time, and I felt this small inside of the chair. Like imagine I'm a big guy, and I felt really tiny and nice and I felt safe, and I never had that feeling before. And then, of course, when it went away, I wanted to do it again. And then progressively over time, when my addiction was really bad, I would not attend social gatherings as much. Became more socially inept, started to isolate myself. My worldviews changed. Like I would root for every bad guy in every movie. And I would so say somebody did a heist, right? They did a bank robbery, but at the end of the movie, they get caught. Well, I would stop it there. I would enjoy the heist, they're getting away with something. I recalled asking my dad. I said to my father, I was like, may rest Allah yarhamu. I remember telling him, I think we were watching a movie or something. They stole $3 million. I was like, Dad, if you got $3 million, what would you do with it? He was like, I would give it back. And I thought that was crazy. I was like, oh my God, you know what I would do with that? And all I was thinking was, acquiring more drugs and partying and doing all that stuff. Because my brain was completely rewired at the time. So overall, near the end, all my relationships were destroyed. The only person that I hurt her, right? My mother, right? You got to imagine how much I hurt my mom, and she still loved me no matter what, unconditionally. But with everyone else, I have 7 siblings, 2 brothers and 4 sisters. I destroyed all that relationship. There was, the first thing you give up is trust, and the last thing you get back. So that trust was all gone. And then let alone people, in the streets and with police officers. So all the relationships were destroyed.
Have you been able to at least mend some of those relationships with your siblings?
Oh yeah. So in recovery, now after 6 years, I'm blessed with 22 nephews and nieces, and now I'm one of the most respected uncles in the family. Very principled, dependable, reliable, and honest, right? Because I get to serve. I get to when my family calls upon me, at least I know that I can show up for them, be reliable. And I've mended all the relationships. It took them about 2 years for them to fully regain the trust, where they stopped accusing me of using, because for an example, if I were to go to my mother's house and I'm say I have my cell phone, right, and I'm looking down just like this, and from her angle, she would think that I was using. So she would accuse me of using. Or if I would go lay on her couch, she would say, hey, are you using? And it would be very upsetting for me. I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And it would cause tension. But of course, I would make amends with my mom again. And I found it very hard. Like, I felt like, okay, I got clean, you know, why am I still being punished for getting clean? And I realized, that was records of my past. And of course, now that we're talking about this, for someone out there, literally, like, imagine you are a cancer survivor and you're still paying the price for it. You're basically being accused of stuff, like you've just overcome this disease, right? Where it's been arrested, it's in remission. And now if you portray the same habits or go back to the same environment, it's going to come out of remission, right? Same thing with substance use disorder, right? I mean, in our field, or like in my 12-step program, we call it addiction or alcoholism, or, the disease. But so yeah, I hope that answered that question.
Oh no, absolutely. And that's it's funny because we go through these really difficult experiences through this disease, and then we kind of go through the steps of getting ourselves out. And to us, it's like, I'm out, I'm in the clear. But there's still that past, that people around you, especially the relationships we've severed, that they're still going to hold on to that because it hurt them. But that's why, we put in the effort, especially once we're able to sober up and able to show up for them. We put that effort in, and slowly but surely we reassure them. And then I think it kind of strengthens the relationship when you're able to rebuild that trust, because when you break something down and you rebuild it stronger.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one advantage of that. And the thing you mentioned about your mother, I think a mother's love is the most powerful thing in the universe. And I think as difficult as addiction can become, our mothers will always be there for us. And that's,
right.
For me, my mother was like my beacon of hope, and the thing that kept me kind of grounded. And so that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
And I want to say this, I God bless your mom. My mom was my beacon of hope, but at the same time, was enabling me, right? And her love almost literally killed me. And what I'm saying is, she loved me to death, to the point where I was hurting myself and she still loved me, right? So, it's not like everyone has it has the knowledge, or like the instructions are, hey, if your son is addicted to substances, this is what you do, right? No, my mom, all she knows how to do is mother, right?
Yeah.
But one thing she did is she encouraged me to get help. That's the one thing I give a lot of props to my mom, is that when I had to leave my house, she knew what was going on, because I recall this the last time I went to drug rehab, and when I went home, I realized that I'm coming back to the same environment. I'm probably gonna have the same contact list, same phone, probably gonna go back to the same job, right? And then I looked at myself and I realized, what's really changed? I mean, okay, I got detoxed, I'm clean now, but what has really changed, And I looked at my parents, and Allah yarhamah, at the time, my dad had dementia, and my mom's a diabetic. My dad is in his 90s, almost 90, and my mom is in her late 70s at the time. And I realized that three sick people can't help each other. And so I let my mother know that I have to leave. Like, I need further treatment. Like, this is not over, And I can't help you. And I told them, like, you guys can't help me, and I'm definitely not going to help you right now, because I'm only going to destroy you guys even further, essentially. So when I made the decision to leave my house, my mom encouraged me, which I'm very grateful for. Now, from time to time when I would call her, she'd always tell me to come back, but but at least she encouraged me to leave, so, which was good. It allowed me to grow,
She was trying her best, and I think sometimes if you love somebody and they're in a self-destructive kind of habit, you have to let them go. You have to let them kind of figure it out on their own, because it's it's that urgency, it's that necessity of like, oh, I need these people back in my life, and so I have to get back to, building my relationships and get back to kind of working on my sobriety on my own. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. So I don't want to run too much over the time, so we're gonna skim some of the questions.
Okay.
So how are you maintaining recovery, like currently, and what's the most challenging obstacle for you?
So in the beginning of my recovery, it was very, very challenging because it was very uncomfortable. You got to imagine I'm recovering from a disease, right? And the world doesn't care. Okay, that's one thing. I had to make it a priority that my recovery is above everything, above a job, above a relationship, because if I were to give my time to those things, I'm gonna die. So what I'm saying is I needed to make my recovery a priority. So my entire life revolved around my recovery. So like the foundation was recovery, and then, job, and then if I'm even capable of getting in a relationship, right? Because if I allow this relationship to come in, I have to give it time and respect, and I can't do that when I'm battling this within, right? So I went to a 12-step program. After I finished detox residential, I went to intensive outpatient. After that, I followed up with therapists, but it wasn't enough for me. I needed more. And so I went to a 12-step program. I can't really mention their name because it's anonymous, okay? But it's a part of our traditions. But a 12-step program. I went to meetings. I did like 90. I did 180 in 90 days. Like that's what I needed, right? Yeah. They made me really uncomfortable. They helped me out in the situation. They taught me how to serve. Now today, how I maintain is, of course, a daily gratitude list, prayer. Exercise, of course, health and wellness. I don't smoke cigarettes. I realized that overcoming cigarette addiction or nicotine addiction was very tough for me. I looked at the percentages, and the percentages came back were stunning. If you smoke cigarettes, if you take in nicotine, you have a 30% chance of success in recovery. But if you don't smoke, if you quit smoking, your chances go up to 70%. So I like the 70 more than the 30. And it was one of the greatest decisions I ever made in my life. But I realized in order to stay nicotine free, I wasn't spiritually fit to be around people that smoked hookah, that cigarettes. So I needed to stay away from that. Until again, I can understand and constructively build that no, right? How do I say no? But first of all, I have to get over this addiction to the substance first. And the same thing with addiction. Like I needed to remove myself from my entire environment for a while because I remember when I would come back to Dearborn, I would be triggered. Like I'd get a sense of anxiety, Warren and Schaefer, Michigan and Schaefer, they would give me anxieties. Now going through it's nothing for me 6 years later. Like I back then I couldn't comprehend the concept of not using, and then today I can't comprehend the concept of using, and how I maintain my sobriety, of course, is sponsoring others, helping others, speaking about it, right, to save other people's lives, and protecting my recovery, no matter what, setting that boundary, like no matter what, and it's a struggle sometimes. Not a lot of people know, which is okay, right? And when I remove that sense of entitlement, right, in my life, and looked at myself and stopped pointing the finger at everyone else, I learned how to maintain that sobriety, because it starts with me, right? I can't sit here and blame everybody else. So
absolutely,
yeah, that's how I maintain it.
That's really good. I think I actually posted something about it on Facebook yesterday. I'm not sure if you thought, but essentially we take charge of our own lives, And the post says the world doesn't really owe us anything. We kind
I
of
saw that. I saw
our
that,
own
bro. I
ability to
love
make
it.
our decisions. And so every single day we can actively choose which path we want to take. And so honestly, I'm glad you chose the sobriety path. And yeah, with sobriety comes, you have a whole plethora of different opportunities to help people and to help yourself and to build your social and physical and mental health, and even economic and spiritual health. And so prayer and meditation, yoga, gratitude journals have been huge for me. All of these things, definitely. And yeah, the sense of anxiety you get because you can't imagine being in a place that you once were using and not using. But it shows you how powerful our mind is too, because if you commit to that sobriety, to that clean time, over time you can be in that same place and you can't imagine yourself using anymore. And so it's very interesting how that flips.
I'd like to add two more things, please.
Yeah.
And the beauty in helping others is, of course, okay, so a part of this disease is we have a sense of amnesia, right? We forget the pain, we forget where we came from. And when you help a newcomer that comes in, the beauty in it is that you become that person's hope, right? That person can't comprehend, like saying, wow, this person has 6 years, right?
Yeah.
You become that person's hope, but then you get humbled and you get reminded of who the heck you were, Where did you come from, right? And then the second thing is, by me sharing my story, it doesn't, it gives value to my active addiction days. What I'm saying is, it hasn't gone in vain. So I use what I went through and all my experiences to serve, So therefore it happened for a reason, right? As opposed to, okay, this happened in my life, and I'm gonna forget about it, and I'm not gonna use, the experiences I had to help others. I think that it's a blessing in disguise as long as you survive it, The blessing in disguise is as long as you survive, And I don't know why my camera keeps going in and out.
It's all good. It's all about the content of the conversation. The cameras. But I was talking to my cousin yesterday, actually, and he told me, God put me in that situation because he needs more soldiers on the ground. He needs more people who are serving and helping communities. And when I started with LAHC, they knew full and well, I was in active addiction and I was struggling with this. And I made the point that, when I was younger, I didn't have that guidance of there's different ways to cope. There's different ways to deal with life on its own terms. And so now, like you said, we have the opportunity, it's a very humbling opportunity to be able to talk to a younger person and say, hey, look, I know life may be tough right now. I know things may be difficult, but you will get through it. Every single experience will pass. But the experience of addiction and falling into that cycle, that sticks around for years. You close your eyes and open your eyes, and it's like 4 years you've been dealing with this addiction, or 6 years, or 10 years. It just flies by. And so in a way, it is kind of miraculous that we go through these experiences so that we can be that beacon of hope for other people. And yeah, like you said, it is very humbling, and it's a wonderful feeling. Definitely, it feels like we're chosen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feels like we're chosen. All right, so I think that's all the time we have for our porch chat. Rabih, I want to thank you so much for joining us, man. This was a really awesome conversation. And I hopefully in the future, we're going to have more discussions like this, because I think a lot of people in this community, especially a lot of youth, could benefit from dialogue like this. And so thank you for joining us.
Thank you for giving me this platform, and, for constantly, communicating me, supporting me. And thank you, and the organization, LHC, and ACT, correct? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
ACT Act, for your prevention programs and outreach. And I commend you guys, and please continue the fight out there. We need you. Anytime you want to talk about this uncomfortable conversation, let's keep doing it until it becomes comfortable. You know, we gotta keep doing it, please.
Yeah.
And I'm at your service.
I mean, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to communicating with you again. Have a good day.
All right.
Have a great day.
You
Happy
too.
Friday.
Bye bye.